Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another in our series, our professional development series webinars at the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. We have a packed session in store for you today, and don't go anywhere. Do not switch off your devices because you can't afford to miss 1 minute of what we have in store for you. So that we are having part one of our webinar series and workshop series that focuses on creativity in education. We want to engage in some critical considerations for teaching and learning and the integration of creativity in higher education. We are very happy to have in studio with us today, and we are broadcasting live from our settling studio at the CETL. We want to welcome you and invite you to really participate as well as we move along. We have a very special guest in studio with us this morning. She is Dr. Josephine Torrell Brown. Dr. Josephine Torrell Brown is a teacher educator and curriculum coordinator with the Ministry of Education in Trinidad and Tobago. She is also an adjudicator and consultant in arts, culture, and education. Dr. Torrell Brown possesses a doctorate in cultural studies from the University of Trinidad and Tobago, a Master of Philosophy degree in cultural studies from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, a Bachelor of Arts degree in musical arts, also earned at the UWI St. Augustine, and a teacher's diploma attained at the Valsain Teachers College. Dr. Torrell Brown has researched and practiced integrating the arts as a vehicle for academic achievement in several educational contexts, such as the Arts in Education approach, artists in schools, integrated arts, and math and language jingles initiatives. Her mission of arts and culture inclusion extends to the tourism and economic sectors through research on intangible cultural tourism as an option for economic diversification. Welcome, Dr. Torrell Brown.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we know we don't have a lot of time to talk about a lot of things to do with creativity in education, which we understand as practitioners in the field of creative education as being of utmost importance.
Very critical.
Yes, so that we're happy that you are here to share out of your expertise, out of your vast experience as a practitioner in the field, and we are focusing specifically on applying some of these principles to academics in higher education.
Exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. So let's move ahead. Creativity is so very crucial to life as we know it, to life in this world that's characterized by tremendous flux.
Yes.
Creativity has been driving innovations
Of
in
course.
technology for centuries,
Of course.
and governments worldwide have recognized, including our governments,
Yeah.
our region, have recognized the absolute importance and imperative of creativity in education.
Exactly. And
Yes.
I would like to bring it down to minimal level in terms of, let us look like at everyday life. What is the
Yes.
opposite of creativity? If something is lacking creativity in our life,
Yes.
then wouldn't we have a boring life?
It would be tremendously boring. And I'm thinking too, even the movies that we enjoy so much, the movie industry is a $1 billion industry.
Mm.
Creativity is at the
Creativity.
core.
Yes.
Is at the core. Creativity, in my humble opinion, is the essence of who we are as humans.
Of course. And
Yes.
the number one thing that Sudanese like, what
Oh,
do we like?
yes.
Carnival,
So
right?
there's a lot
Lot,
of creative
lot,
expression.
lot of
Yes,
creativity
definitely.
there. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Even how we dress. Look at you, how lovely you look, Dr.
You
Jones.
likewise.
And a lot of creativity in there as well.
Yes. And what
It's all
I
about.
have, and I know this has been a part of your career experience over the years, working with various levels in the education system.
Yes.
We want to look at a video now that you have shared with me,
Yes.
and I think it really speaks to some serious critical considerations for us as educators, because not all educators are on the same page. We are still grappling with the reality of transmissive modes of instruction or transmissive pedagogies. Even as I say that, I think about a term I came across. I forgot who coined the term plantation pedagogy. Her name will come back to me in a while to give due credit. Plantation pedagogy is a concern, has been a concern. But we want to look at the video that you had shared with us.
Yes. Sure.
Yes,
And it speaks to our word today,
yes.
creativity.
So we ask our participants to pay very close attention to this video, because we might be asking you to tell us something about it in a little while.
Part one, moving amongst the madness. The next bit, this part two, moving amongst the madness. Let your body collide to the rhythm provided. Part one, absolutely perfect. What kind of moving amongst the madness. Fall one, break it down, work for the next. Fall one, moving amongst the madness. The next
Now we want you to pause, think, and reflect. Pause, think, and reflect. How do you think this video might be related to practices in teaching and learning? We're giving you 30 seconds to pause, think, reflect. And then we ask you, we can ask them to write in the Zoom chat.
Yes, of course. Yes, they can write in the
Yes,
Zoom
please
chat.
write in the Zoom chat how you think this video might be related to practices in teaching and learning. Let's see what our
Interesting
audience, our
responses, I
participants,
anticipate.
our colleagues who have joined us this morning. And by the way, thank you so much, colleagues, for taking the time to join us in this webinar and to also participate. Your voice is very important. So we'd like you to write in the chat now how you think this video might be related to practices in teaching and learning. Also, we're inviting a brave soul to unmute his or her mic and to share with us your thoughts. We don't have much time, so we ask you to keep the comments to a minimum, but we would also like to hear your voice. So is there anyone who would like to share what you thought about this video and how it might be related to practices in teaching and learning? I'm reaching out to our studio team. Team, do we have anyone? Do we have any comments in the chat?
Yes, I like how this is interactive.
I like that too.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have
We welcome participants to
Yes. Do we have a
participate.
participant?
yes, so we have Ladena. She's
Okay,
saying that
thank you, Javed. Javed is one
it
of our studio operators.
right. So we have Ladena, and she's saying, yeah, it reminds me of the quest to find innovative strategies to boost student engagement.
Excellent.
Thank you for
Excellent.
that.
Thank you, Ladena.
Yes.
And Ladena, thank you so much for taking the time to join. I remember you were at one of our practical sessions not too long ago, and you were such a joy. You were such a joy during that session.
So
And
another
yes,
comment in the chat
thank
is
you. Yes, Javed.
yes, perhaps it can be used as an icebreaker as it captivated me as to what's next.
Ah,
Interesting perspective. Thank you for that comment.
yes.
Definitely, I can see that working as an icebreaker as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes, leading into what you would like to focus on.
Precisely.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Do we have another comment? One more and we move on? Okay, thank you. So we can move on. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Yes. So that video
Yes.
really showed creativity.
Yes.
Because when I looked at it, what
Mhm.
captivated me
Yes.
is I did not see a hand and fingers. I saw a footballer.
Yes.
But how this person transformed a body part into a whole human being, and what he did was demonstrated skills.
Exactly.
I found that to be really interesting
Exactly.
and creative.
Yes.
So I think that really demonstrated creativity.
And to think of something like that requires thinking outside of the box.
Definitely.
So let's assume this is a teacher
Yes.
trying to find new ways to make content matter more engaging.
Yes.
The issue of student engagement during instructional events is of tremendous concern at every level of the education system.
Definitely.
Even more so since we enter the digital age.
Mm,
We compete. We've both taught young ones.
yes.
We teach adults. And we know that keeping someone psychologically present during a lesson is not an easy task.
Oh, no, it isn't.
And someone can be staring at us, appearing to be attentive, and his or her mind could be engaged elsewhere. That person might not necessarily be psychologically present.
Yes.
How many times, as educators, as teachers in a classroom, have we taught a concept or in the process of teaching a concept and you pause and do a knowledge check
Yes.
and you get blank stares?
Oh, don't I know about that?
And what comes to mind as well, it's a little what? A little idea, a little adage. It says, I see and I hear and I forget.
Mhm.
I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And what I was thinking as I watched that video as well is that, okay, our colleague said, one, it could be an icebreaker. Two, it could be used to help a lesson to become more engaging. And three, I would go a step further to extend those ideas to say we can actually have students themselves do it for a particular teaching point that might be related to physical education
Yes.
or movement or the sky's the limit.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And as you were speaking there, it
Yes.
reminded me that we need to motivate our
Yes.
students.
Yes.
And I'm saying our audience because
Yes.
it can be students, it can be participants like now, it
Exactly.
can be workshop participants, whatever.
Yes.
But first of all, we need to motivate persons to want to pay attention.
Exactly.
And then captivating their interest so that they will
Yes.
have continued engagement.
And as you say, as you said that, I'm even thinking about even extending concepts, awareness, sensitization sessions like these,
Yes.
even to the wider community,
That's
to a
right.
range of other stakeholders. Yes,
Yes.
we are focusing on teaching and learning in higher education, but all that we are saying here today, this discourse in which we are engaging is also applicable at different age levels.
That's right. Adaptability. We know about that in
Ah,
research, right?
oh yes, we do.
Right. So before you go to the next slide, we have two more comments. So Marsha Pierce, I hope I got her name correct. She's saying that it invites a different way of seeing,
Excellent.
Ah,
right? And then we
excellent.
have Nadia Singh, who gave a comment here, and it's along the lines of the motivation that you were speaking about,
Excellent.
right? She's
Yes.
saying here, use of an alternative form of expression,
Yes.
use of a topic, soccer, football, which grasps everyone's attention, similar to using everyday examples or other relatable material to present different concepts.
Hmm. Could we have said it any better?
No.
This
Thank
is
you.
excellent. This is
Thank you for
excellent. Thank
saying
you.
that so much.
Thank you.
All the comments are
Yes,
really relevant. And I want to
definitely.
thank you all for that so much.
Definitely. These are our
But
colleagues.
yes, of course. But I
Yes.
also want to point out, Dr.
Yes.
Jones
Yes.
and the audience, that what would have enhanced that video was also the music in the background. Did you hear that? So that added another touch of
another
creativity.
dimension. Yes.
Yes, so the arts
Yes.
really definitely is slam dunk into creativity.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
So that we want to now begin to contextualize this conversation this morning,
Sure.
because everything occurs within a context. And as researchers, as academics, we understand just how crucial it is to situate what is done into the applicable, relevant, the existing context. Nothing happens outside of a context. So we want to look at the context. We alluded to it a little while ago. Creativity in education, we were saying, lies at the heart of current educational debate. It is current at the international global educational level.
Level.
This is what I discovered in my review of literature, in my research studies. Globally, governments are reorganizing their education systems to meet the challenges of the 21st century. A little while ago, we spoke to the reality of a world that is characterized by flux. You used the word adaptability a while ago.
Yes.
The persons who are exiting the education system need to be adaptable. And we'll talk a little more about 21st century skills as we go along.
Well,
One of the priorities is promoting creativity in education and innovation.
innovation.
And the implications are far reaching. So that we want to look now on the next slide at what our region is recognizing, has recognized. Recognition of the significance of developing creativity potential in the region's human capital is evident in the Caribbean community. So it's not just two of us who have a passion for creativity, the creative arts, arts and
Yes.
education, arts integration, arts education. We're both very passionate. But beyond that passion are logical, rational reasons for advocating for greater emphasis to be placed on it, for the implementation of it, for training to expand.
Yes, and prepare persons who have to engage in creativity.
Exactly.
And what we are seeing here now, according to this slide, it's situated not just in Trinidad and Tobago,
And
but
not just
regionally.
here. Exactly.
Right. So a
exactly.
regional body like like CARICOM also
Exactly.
has recognized that.
And we
And
see, yes, we see an expansion of this on the next slide. So let's look at the CARICOM 2011 profile of the ideal Caribbean person.
Listen, this will be interesting.
Someone who values
Values, yes,
and displays the
creative imagination.
in its various manifestations, and nurtures its development
in all areas of life. Just what we were speaking
we
about when
stress
we
that.
opened.
All areas of
Creativity
life.
is everywhere in almost
Exactly.
everything.
Not just in the arts,
No,
in the sciences, in
Yes.
technology,
everything
every aspect of life, every sphere of
aspect.
human
in
operations.
architecture, there's
Oh,
creativity.
yes.
In fashion, there's creativity.
Exactly. In culinary arts.
Oh, yes.
How often have we looked at
Presentation
the
is
Iron
important.
Chef?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes, it's all over. And it also demonstrates multiple literacies, independent and critical thinking. And you see
21st century skills again.
21st century
Yes.
skill, yes.
So moving on. CARICOM's profile of the ideal Caribbean person is also someone who questions the beliefs and practices of past and present.
Yes.
So I'm going to, well, I don't want to go down the socio-historical road too much, but the reality is we live in a post-colonial space.
Oh, definitely.
And
That's the reality.
And that is the reality. But we're not focusing on that today, but that is something for serious consideration in terms of how we teach.
Yes, and I think maybe if it
Mhm.
has to come into the discussion, then we have to go there.
Yes.
Because if we
Yes.
want to change our focus, change our way of
Yes.
thinking and doing things, and they say, you will not know where you're going unless you look back where you came
Exactly.
from.
Exactly.
And if we have to do that, then we shall. But now we have so much more to talk about.
So that will be for another
Yes.
conversation. We might touch on it again a little
Just
later
me,
on.
yes.
But if we could go back to that slide, please. Yes, someone who has developed the capacity to create and take advantage of opportunities to control, improve, maintain, and promote physical. This is the whole person. When we talk
Mental.
about holistic
Yes.
education, holistic learning,
Yes.
physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being, and contributes to the health and welfare of the community and country, so that we understand in education that we are educating a human being to be a success in life, but also to be an asset to his or her country,
That's right.
his or her community.
Yes, and just emphasizing this is the ideal Caribbean person.
Exactly.
Yes, but I want to bring it back to local.
Yes.
The type of citizen we want for Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly.
What kind of person do we want to leave our schools, our
Exactly.
tertiary institutions? What kind of persons do we want in our workforce? And these are the
Exactly.
qualities that
Exactly.
this person need to have. And creativity is in the middle of it all.
Exactly. And if we go to the next slide, we see now, okay, that the University of the West Indies has recognized and adopted these critical characteristics in its profile of the ideal UB graduate. So we see a creative and critical thinker. This is what UB say.
Congrats, Yui.
I mean, we are among the best in the world.
Of course.
And we can see why. And we understand here at the UB that we continue to get even better
That's right.
and explore ways of improving ourselves more. We're great.
Yes.
We are great. There's no contesting that, but we aspire for even greater heights and achievements.
And that's what this session is about, right?
Exactly. So if we go back to that one that we were just looking at, a critical and creative thinker, an effective communicator with good interpersonal skills, creativity, Ned supports that
Yeah, of
as
course.
well. IT skilled and information literate,
innovative and entrepreneurial,
Mm-hmm.
globally aware and well-rounded in his or her regional identity.
Exactly.
And I love this one.
Yes.
Socially, culturally, and environmentally responsible.
So important.
Yes.
And guided by strong ethical
Ethical values, another important.
Creativity in education, creative pedagogies can support the development, the fostering of all of these attributes.
Of an ideal UWI
Yes,
graduate.
yes.
Yes.
So moving on. So this graphic here is simply to cinch or what's the word?
Summarize.
Thank you. Summarize. I was thinking synthesize. Summarize
That.
what we just were looking at.
Yes.
So that among our critical considerations for teaching and learning in higher education are concepts such as developing the creative imagination. Imagination is key
Oh,
to
yes.
creativity,
Yeah.
to creative work. Independent and critical thinking. And pardon me here, forgive me for digressing a bit. I don't think I'm really digressing, but I have had a serious concern, and there are academics who have been researching, we're talking about those neuroscientists, the impact of digital technologies on teaching and learning. Now, here at the CETL, my director's passion is for distance learning and the integration of technologies in teaching and learning. Okay? And how we can use that strategically and very well to enhance learning. My concern, however, is about students coming to us who live on their cell phones. What does that do to the brain? It's bombardment with devices to the point where it begins to affect their social skills, their interpersonal skills,
Right.
their ability to focus during a lecture per se,
And critical thinking
their
skills.
critical thinking skills. So that those are some serious considerations, a whole big other discussion, but creative imagination being developed, independent and critical thinking, which is so crucial in an age where there are deep fakes now coming at us.
Yes.
You have all those social media platforms. Often you circulate something, and now I have learned the hard way, check it out before you share
check.
it.
Yes.
Fact check,
Yes.
because they're deep fakes.
Right. But I also want to add that we are in the digital world.
Yes.
And these devices, as well as these social media platforms, can be very positive and contribute
Exactly.
positively.
And can be used creatively for pedagogical, pedagogical practice.
That's right. We just have to be aware of abuse
Exactly.
or abuse of it and using it in the negative.
Exactly.
And I just want to quickly share, remember my granddaughter.
Yes.
She looked at I don't want to call the name of the show, but a particular show, and
Yes.
she learned to speak well until she started sounding like a little English girl, which is kind of on the extreme.
Yes.
So it can have positive impact.
Yes.
And according to what you were saying,
Yes.
it's in what capacity, how much, how far. So in
Exactly.
everything, there should be balance.
Yes. There are pluses and minuses. So, and the capacity to create innovative application, creativity undergirds innovative application.
Definitely.
And we will talk later on, look at Bloom's taxonomy and so on later on. But I'm thinking here, when I'm looking at the content here, that it's not that we're throwing out the lower levels of the taxonomy. Knowledge undergirds creativity. Creativity undergirds innovation. It's an iterative loop. It's a synthesis kind of dynamic occurring inside of any creative enterprise.
Agreed.
So as we move on, I have no clue how much time has elapsed.
But time flies when you're having fun.
So Josephine, would you like to just highlight these quickly and we move on?
Sure. So again, we want to emphasize that we are presenting on critical considerations, right? And just following up on what you just discussed
Yes.
just now, creative thinking and action. I know we have explored that a lot since we have
Yes.
started.
Yes.
Critical thinking is the name of the game. Creative exercise of imagination and intellect,
Yes.
and creativity as well enhances the capacity to create.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. So as we move on quickly, so creativity enhancing the capacity to create, and we just mentioned Bloom's taxonomy.
Taxonomy.
We in education are always mentioning Bloom. I almost said the word blooming, but I mean Bloom. How apt, because creative pedagogies can support our students to bloom
Oh, yes.
academically,
Oh.
socially, interpersonally.
How appropriate.
Yes, it's the first time that a light bulb just went on in my head. Bloom, bloom.
Very odd.
So it's a highest order cognitive process, and we will see on the next slide a little. Josephine, this was your input in
Good.
this presentation. I hand over to you to introduce this activity.
Oh gosh, thank you. So I came across this video and it may be very familiar to many of our participants here. It speaks to brain development and how creativity can enhance that development of the brain. So there are 4 exercises here. We will only look at one this
The
morning.
first one.
Yes,
Yes.
the first one. So we invite the audience, stay glued to your screen, put on your thinking caps. Be careful. I'm warning you, be cautious. It could be fun. So
Yes.
we invite you to participate in the following exercise that's coming up right
Yes.
now.
It's a pity we can't ask them to unmute. It gets really muffled when everybody talks.
That's
But we ask people to try it out.
yes, yes, please. So let's see the
Let's
video.
see. I really liked it. It
Yeah.
wasn't, well, it was quite interesting.
It was interesting. The first time I tried, I was tripping over myself, and I said,
Yes.
"No, I have got to get this. I have got to get it
And
right."
after this, we'll get a little feedback from our colleagues in our viewing audience.
Yes. So even what we are seeing on the screen, that and all is a bit of challenging to do.
Yes. So here goes, just the first one. So our tech support will pause the video at the end of the first
First
one.
one.
Yes. We don't have time to look at all, but we could always you all can reach out to us and we can share the link.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. So as with technology, wonderful, but sometimes it has its challenges.
Yes.
Like now, so we will be
it's buffering.
we will be patient. But in the meanwhile,
yes, while it's buffering.
yes, while it's buffering, if the audience can recall what was shown on the screen before. Oh, here it is.
Here it is. Right side.
Exercise.
So here goes. There are 4 exercises in this video. We'll only be looking at the first one. Yes.
Yes. And as I was saying before,
Yes.
making the peace sign on one hand and then making a circle with the other hand and switching.
I tried that, and that is so difficult to do. Did you mean like this?
Yes.
Like this?
Yes, and then having
And
to
then
switch.
switch?
Yes.
Concentration exercises. Now, that brings to mind the whole idea of games, drama games that can be used very quick.
Yes.
Persons tend to think, oh, I am not a musician. I am not a professional actor. I'm not a professional singer, like one of my colleagues here at the CETL. Like 2 of my colleagues here at the CETL, my director and Dr. Zephyrin, who have amazing voices. Not all of us are blessed with such beautiful angelic voices,
Certainly not
but
me.
it doesn't mean to say we can't use music. All of us are not professional dancers, it doesn't mean that we can't still incorporate the arts,
Yes.
even though we are not professional artists or artists.
That's right. And
Yes.
this video we're going to
Yes.
see incorporates
Yes.
one of the arts, the visual arts.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So let's take it in
go.
now.
4 exercises to test how fast your brain is. Regular exercise helps you stay in good shape and push back the appearance of changes associated with old age. This fact applies to all the organs in your body, including your brain. That's why today we're going to tell you about 4 simple exercises that can help preserve your memory. Also, you have a unique chance to check how fast your brain is. Let's begin. Exercise number 1. Multicolored text. We're going to show you words written in different colors. Proceed to say aloud the name of the color in which each of the words on the list is written. Ready? Go. I guess it isn't that easy to do that it might seem. Now, let's name each color again in reverse order. Ready? Go. Did you manage to do it? Expect the going to be difficult at first, since the sections responsible for text perception and color perception are located in different hemispheres of the brain. Why is this exercise beneficial to your brain? It helps to prevent Alzheimer's disease by establishing new connections between the hemispheres and improves concentration and attention switching abilities. Exercise 2. Schulte table.
Colleagues, we just want 1 or 2 persons to share with us what that video did to you. Someone can unmute. Feel free to unmute your mic. We had fun doing it, almost bit off our tongues at times. So let's have 2 of our colleagues in our audience just unmute your mics and quickly tell us how you felt doing that activity. Feel free to unmute your mic.
Was it challenging?
Was it easy? No, we're dealing with some brilliant folks in the audience, huh? So I'm assuming
Okay.
it might have been easy for some. Do we have anyone in the audience? Or you could even type in the chat.
Right.
But we'd like someone to unmute, please, and speak. We want to hear you as well.
Okay, so it seems that people are afraid. Hello, Dr. J. Hello, Dr. T.
Dr. Noreen Carrington Dixon.
Dixon.
Thank you for joining us this morning. So what did you think?
I will be honest, because I am a former art teacher, that was a fun exercise for me because it's something that I have used in the past and it was easy because I am aware of it and have used it. But when I first did it, way back when, it was difficult. Practice makes perfect.
Well, thank you so much for that. Very much. Thank you.
Yes.
One other comment and we move on.
Yes, please.
Good morning. This is Marsha Pierce,
Good morning.
a lecturer in visual arts at the Department of.
So we're having our visual arts person.
Howard Gardner would be happy.
Yes.
So I thought I would share, and in fact, my own area of research interest is the relationship between images and words. And so for me, what I found very interesting in this is that while the video talks about, making this distinction between text and color, words are also visual in the sense that it shapes, letters are shapes as well. And so what I find happening there is the mind having to switch attention between shape and color. So you're either recognizing the word or you're trying to you're trying to focus on color. So there's that switch happening, which is very important.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, adding another dimension of
Exactly.
shape. Yes.
One more
Thank you.
comment quickly. One more. Somebody there is burning to say something. LaDonna, would you like to share something?
This is Freddie James. Not
Oh,
good
Dr.
to say
James,
something,
thank you
but,
so much for taking the time.
But at the beginning, it was challenging. And then, so I had to consciously say to myself, I am looking for the color and not the word. And then it's when it just became very easy. But it had to be a conscious saying to self, you're looking for the color and not the word.
Exactly.
Yes.
And thank you so much for sharing that. And my question always is when we do the practical strategies component is, could you see yourself using something like this in a class, even as an attention arrestor, or to, if it's a visual arts class, perhaps,
Or like someone said earlier on, a brain, uh, what did the
brain
person say?
activity.
Brain activity, an
Yes.
icebreaker,
Exactly.
a set induction activity.
Exactly.
Yes, and I just want to share quickly,
Yes.
as the video spoke about brain.
Yes.
Brain research indicates
Yes.
that the left hemisphere is concerned more with verbal, mathematical, and other functions.
Yes.
Right? And the arts reside on the right side of the brain.
Yes.
So it just speaks to whole brain development.
Mhm.
And it also speaks to why we need to vary our strategies in teaching and learning. We want the whole brain development. We want to develop creativity.
Yes.
And so hence the reason activities involving both left and right brain, varied strategies are critical.
Definitely.
Another critical consideration.
Varied strategies.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that, and thank you to our viewers, our co-facilitators, because the voices of our audience, of our participants in this webinar, they share. We're in a space of sharing, a dialogic space that we value. So what you bring to this webinar is as valuable as what we are attempting to bring to it as well. So thank you so much for sharing. So that we mentioned Bloom earlier, the taxonomy of cognitive objectives. And well, I'll mention that later on. But one of the most universally applied cognitive models is Bloom's taxonomy. And if we move on to the next slide quickly, please. Because it talks about different levels, speaks to different levels of thinking, lower order thinking skills, higher order thinking skills. Could creativity in education support the development of higher order thinking skills? In 1990s, Lauren Anderson made an adjustment to Bloom's initial thinking. And that's the nature of academia. As we move forward, we look back, we critique constructively, and we move forward. And Lauren Anderson revisited the taxonomy, as the following table will graphically show us in the next slide, so that we see the original terms, knowledge, comprehension, the original levels, lower order to higher order, highest level being evaluation. We have knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation.
And
What
that's the
Lauren,
original version.
yes, the original version.
Yeah.
What Lauren Anderson, and I would like to qualify this by saying aptly identified, is that creativity was missing. And she adapted it to become remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating.
You know why I like this, especially Dr. Jones, as someone who is into the arts and culture arena,
Yes.
the respect and disrespect that is shown to artists. I know we don't want to go down that road,
Yes,
but it
yes.
speaks, and especially in the school system,
Yes.
where sometimes they place children in classes to do the arts. Or you cannot do sciences and you cannot do language. So go ahead and do the music and do the arts.
Yes.
Not realizing that actually, according to this, it's very higher order thinking.
Because it subsumes all of the other levels, a
That's
range
right.
of skills. So I see a parallel between this, maybe accurately or inaccurately. I can't help thinking about Maslow's hierarchy and self-actualization.
Self-actualization.
And as far as I'm concerned, this is my personal view, to be self-actualized is to be able to recognize, accept, apply, and implement creativity in my life.
Yes. And it's
That for me is what self-actualization. I cannot be self-actualized without creative empowerment. I feel so strongly about that.
in addition, for you to feel that way, you also have to be confident. So
Yes.
self-confidence
Exactly.
also comes along with that.
Self-esteem. Well,
Yes.
educational psychologists will continually stress the absolute importance of developing self-esteem in our students.
Correct.
But it's not a psychological discourse this morning, but we could go on and on
Yeah,
for hours.
Of course.
So moving on, and I think we're preaching to the converted.
That's right. So it's just a
Yes.
discussion,
It's just a
really.
discussion.
Because and I like how our audience also get to share.
Yes.
You know, so it's a discussion we are having, you
Yes.
know, and I really appreciate this.
I think this is a very important point. The relevance of the revised taxonomy to the topic at hand is clear. Creative thinking is situated in the taxonomy at the highest cognitive level as an active process inherent in the cognitive dimension of the learning process. What is also of utmost importance is the affective domain that the arts and creative pedagogies would target because
Yes.
engagement is key. Why are some of our students failing so much? They lack motivation, they lack engagement. There are numerous distractions. The arts promote focus.
It does. And you were speaking of emotional intelligence. And research, recent research has also indicated that it's not so much IQ, but more EQ that determines success.
Exactly.
And the arts definitely appeals to the emotional intelligence. And the 21st century skills like empathy and so on comes out of that.
And the verbs.
Values, attitudes, and behaviors.
Because we can have a genius who is maladapted, and that can cause so many problems. So let's move on. I'm getting really excited here. True education should strive to prepare minds to create new ideas, according to Jicklin and Walls, 2012. Let's move on. So there's a gentleman, he's still alive, Ken Robinson, who had quite a lot to say about creativity in education. He was involved in the development of what is it, the NAACE, a report that did research and came up with recommendations for adjusting the education system in the UK years ago. And he speaks extensively on integrating creativity and cultural considerations and studies in education in a very meaningful way to develop persons into more creatively conscious and conscious, but that's awareness, and to develop their ability to create, to problem solve. To solve any problem, you need creativity. So Robinson said that schools have the complex task of preparing learners not only for the world of work and their economic independence, but also enabling them to live constructively in
And-
culturally diverse communities. You mentioned differentiation early
Yes.
on.
Yes, and especially in our local context, our
Exactly.
multicultural society,
Exactly.
that's required.
So that we see that creative thinking is an invaluable skill for the individual's negotiation of situations, relationships, and the challenges of life in general. Moving on. So we want now to, and you just spoke to it, sociocultural considerations. So on the next slide, we see here that in the current international environment, creative education is being presented as a viable strategy for achieving a range of contextual educational outcomes relative to sociocultural and economic sustainability. And Josephine, before I ask you to speak a little more to this, because this is right up your
My
alley
alley.
with cultural studies, I'm going to ask our colleagues who are participating in the webinar to, in the chat, just put a yes or no if you are familiar with the term creative education. Are you familiar with this term, creative education? In the chat, just put yes or no. And our guys at Master Control will let us know how many yeses they're seeing and how many no's. So just take 2 seconds to do that, please. 1, 2. How many yeses and how many no's? The no's outweigh the yeses. Josephine, you know what this confirms?
That you
What
need-
my data, the data I gathered when I was researching into creative education in Caribbean context, Caribbean OS contexts, and people were very unfamiliar with the term. So that's something else you and I'll have to strategize about
No
as we
problem.
move along. So yes, I hand over to you to speak to this briefly and we move on. Time is running away
Sure,
from
yes.
us.
So can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So I want to position this back in our
Yes.
local context because after all, we do live in
Yes.
this nation.
Yes.
And therefore, while we have international perspectives, we have regional
Yes.
focus, but we need to bring it back home all the time.
Yes.
And that speaks to the type of citizen, as we mentioned before, that we want to have in Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly.
And that is guided by our National Development Strategy,
Mhm.
aka also known as Vision 2030.
Yes.
What does the government of Trinidad and Tobago hope to achieve by the year 2030? It speaks to transformation of the
Yes.
economy, transformation of the citizens of country, right, of all the
Yes.
ministries.
Yes.
So the thematic areas will guide having transforming the different ministries as well as incorporating creativity. So I'm asking the audience, when we look at these themes, do you see creativity in education contributing to these themes?
Exactly.
And the type of persons? For example, theme 1, putting people first, nurturing our greatest asset. That speaks directly to education,
Yes.
right? We are training our students
Mhm.
to be the kind of citizens that we want, hopefully, right?
Yes.
Theme 2, promoting good governance and service excellence. So while we miss it, but we are not directly involved in governance
Yes.
at that level, but we are also preparing persons to go out into the world of work.
Exactly.
And we want them to provide excellent service. When we go to the hospitals, we go to a restaurant, we go anywhere, we would want to receive professional service.
And I'm
right?
thinking that role play, drama and education techniques, role play can help support this, the
That's
development
right.
of these skills.
Yes.
For just as an example.
Yes, and theme 3, improving productivity, and we want quality. Not here it speaks to infrastructure and transportation, but we want quality across the board, right? And we have
Values,
to prepare.
attitudes, beliefs.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, and behaviors. Theme for building globally competitive businesses, and I'm going to add people.
Yes.
And 5, placing the environment at the center of socioeconomic development.
Yes,
And
definitely.
all of those themes and different aspects require creativity.
Yes. And moving on
Next slide,
quickly,
please.
because we still have a lot to cover in a
Oh,
little time.
Yes. Yeah.
So that cultural transformation, yes, we want citizens
Yeah.
who are more independent, critical thinkers, creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial. And I mentioned the VABs that we were discussing this earlier on, and we
Right.
see it here.
And I would just like to quote quickly from Vision
Yes.
2030, page 67,
Yes.
which states that we must reverse certain aspects of our current approach to education, and that speaks to us in education.
Yes.
VABs, values, attitudes, and behaviors pertaining to independent and critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills are hindered due to greater emphasis on promoting conformity and orthodox within schools. So it means we want students to be able to think for themselves, to be independent thinkers and critical thinkers.
No
And we
more
also
plantation pedagogy.
Please. Yes. And the transformation of the education system has been identified by government as a critical step towards engendering the desired values, attitudes, and behaviors within our children towards nation building. And I think this is very critical, important for us as educators to know,
Yes.
Dr. Jones.
Definitely. And moving along quickly, we're going to be speeding through the slides now,
Yes,
because there's some important things and more activities that we want to have our colleagues. Yes. So
while we will not call out all of these,
Yes.
but it just shows that the Ministry of Education has engaged in a cultural transformation policy. So through the education system from ECC to primary and tertiary, we would like to engender creativity towards achieving 21st century skills in our citizens.
Exactly.
And we can move forward.
We can move forward. And UNESCO, like CARICOM, recognizes the importance of creative pedagogies, so that UNESCO asserts that arts and cultural practices, the two go hand in hand.
Naturally.
Incorporated into learning environments, showcase a balanced intellectual, emotional, and psychological development of individuals, and they don't stop there,
And
societies. Moving along quickly. And our audience is full of brilliant intellectuals who can speed read. My director at the top of that list, it's amazing. He speed reads and gets everything. And he must be laughing. Dr. Hill, please feel free to say hello. He must be in a meeting.
Yes.
All right. So this type of creative education, UNESCO, so we can move on. This is UNESCO simply substantiating, endorsing, reinforcing the value.
Right.
So we now have this, Josephine. You want to guide our participants into this?
Yes. We are inviting, we are missing the sign in slide. Do we have a slide or sign in slide where we invite you to go to slido.com? Now we are asking you, participants, to participate. Get your cell phones out, and you can go, or your computers or tablets, go to slido.com, and we'd like you to participate in the question here. The question is, which of the following are 21st century skills that students ought to have?
Can we put the link in the chat?
Yes.
So we'll put the master controllers, we'll put the link in the chat. And this is just a brief quiz?
Yes,
Okay.
Very short, very brief.
Okay, and we will see responses
We should.
coming up on the
Yes,
screen.
if the technology does not fail us now, here it
Yes,
is.
yes,
So this is the sign in slide here.
yes.
Join us at slido.com. So you can either scan the barcode or you can search for slido.com. Thank you. Right, it is an active poll.
Ah, persons are
Here
getting
we
in.
are.
Yes.
So we are seeing
yes.
someone's.
So how did you
Ah.
feel while doing the activity? Why write one word or phrase to describe your feelings? And what activity are we referring to here?
I think Slido mixed up our questions.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
But that activity, the last activity we had with the colors, the text and the
Yes.
color,
So it's probably
Yes.
referring to that.
it's referring
It
to
just
that.
came up.
So
right.
critical thinking is one response we have.
Right. I'm seeing someone else is typing
Engage.
engaged.
Ah,
Mhm.
nice. Nice. One more and we move on. Engage, critical thinking.
Confused.
Well, that's a good place to be, you know.
Yes, but I hope we are not doing the confusing. Focused.
Focused. Well, you see, the thing is, and I say this to students, usually when you are exposed to material that is new, often there is some cognitive dissonance until you get a level of familiarity
See.
with the content. Students is like, I don't understand this. And then afterwards, you say, but this was easy after all. And values, attitudes, beliefs, attitudes to learning,
Behaviors.
you know? Yes.
Also, we are seeing
Skills tested,
intrigued.
intrigued.
Yes.
Lovely,
Thank
lovely.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your responses.
Yes.
Yes, we can
So,
move
which of
on.
these following 21st century skills students ought to have?
I believe that quiz will follow
Yes.
sometime after.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so you get a heads up to expect this question.
Exactly.
All right, next
So we
slide,
can
please.
go on to the next slide, please. So the 4 C's of 21st century learning, and we were alluding to this earlier on. There are many 21st century skills.
There are many. These are just four.
Just 4 that we want to highlight: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, and innovation.
And-
Our colleagues are familiar with this.
Yes, and I would like to add empathy.
Empathy,
Because we really
exactly.
need that.
We really
now.
need that in
Yes.
today's world.
Right? We
So
can-
moving on, creative education. Maybe persons, yes.
Right.
They can do it on the Slido as well and
Yeah.
respond to this.
Yes, this is another question in Slido. I don't know if it's coming up on their screen.
So is this a yes or no response?
This is supposed to be a true or
True or
false,
false.
response. And
Thank
if
you.
you're unable to access Slido, you feel free to write in the chat.
Yes.
True or false. Creative education is limited to the visual and performing arts. True or
Or
false? What
false.
are your thoughts? Feel free to type in the chat.
Yes. What are we getting at master control? What are the responses? How many yes, trues? How many false? False.
Everyone say false?
Everyone says
Well,
false.
You did say we have brilliant minds.
I remember exactly. I know these are our colleagues.
Yes, in higher
I work with these
education.
folks. They are brilliant.
But I did
minds.
not expect differently. So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for participating. And we move
Yes.
on.
So we move on.
Yeah.
Creative education, by a definition, is forms of education that cultivate young people's capacities for originality of ideas and action. It's not limited to the performing arts.
No, that's it. It naturally fits.
It
but
naturally
it's not
fits.
the only.
The arts support this
That's right.
in great measure. but it's not limited to that.
At all.
And we need originality of ideas for problem solving, especially in today's world
Correct.
that's fraught with so much crisis,
Yeah.
so many challenges. Yes. So what is this again, Josephine? I'm trying to remember what this is. We can go ahead and play
Dr.
it.
Jones, I had my hand up before. You
Oh,
wanted to-
someone
sorry.
has
and
a
that's
hand
the
up.
last slide and the definition. Sorry.
Oh,
Right.
this is Dr. James. Yes, Dr. James, please go
Um,
ahead.
Yes, I wondered about this definition that speaks only to young people
Ah,
and
I like
cultivating
that.
young people's capacity as somebody who's involved in andragogy.
Yes.
My experience would be having to cultivate the capacities for originality of ideas and action in adults.
Yes.
And I think it is very important
Mhm.
to do that in adults because sometimes people become wary, creativity wanes
Mhm.
sometime when you have to deal with the exigencies of life and that
Ah,
thing. You know, you tend you can become less creative and more skeptical. So I think it's important
Yes.
to craft a definition that is really inclusive, rather than saying it is to cultivate young people's capacities only, because I don't know about others, but you know, my area, my work is in
Yes.
andragogy. I
Yes.
don't teach students, you know, well, when I
Yes.
see young people, this young people, seems to be referring to people in schools
Exactly.
and not people in higher education.
Exactly. And thank you so much for this, Dr. James. I made a special note, and I think Ken Robinson should be here, and we need to expand on his definition because this is limiting. It
Yes,
is
it-
limiting. And the focus is, as you correctly pointed out, is higher education. And we're in the business of andragogy within this space, higher education, learning space. And yes, definitely. So that is tremendously insightful, profound, and we thank you. So we're going to adjust, we're going to expand on the definition. There are others who there are other definitions of creative education that we can include in this
Yes.
presentation.
And it's
Yes.
possible that Robinson probably was speaking within a
A
specific
context. Yes,
context, maybe a
definitely.
primary or secondary
Definitely.
education.
Definitely.
But I take the point.
Of course.
Very, very
Of
valid
course.
point. Thank you for
And
sharing
thank you
that.
so much, Dr. James. And I think what we need, a key takeaway here, to borrow one of my director's catchphrases, catch terms. Key takeaway here: cultivating original capacities, people's capacities. We can remove young, people's capacities or individuals' capacities for originality of ideas and action.
action.
So thank you very, very much for that.
Yes.
That input.
And
Point well noted. We
Yes.
could almost end the session on that point.
that note, yes.
Yes, very powerful,
And speaking
deep
of
insight, profound.
Yeah, speaking of session,
Yes.
time flies when you're having fun.
Yes,
We're
let's move
almost
on
at the end,
quickly.
and there's so much more
Well,
that
we
we
need
would
the
like
speed.
to share. Yes. So
But you
next
know how
slide,
teachers
please.
are when they prepare, they plan and have extra for contingency,
Oh.
always too much.
Yes.
All right, so moving on, let's just hear what this gentleman had to say.
The result is that we are educating people out of their creative capacities. Picasso once said this. He said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. I believe this passionately, that we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. Or rather, we get educated out of it.
Excellent, thank you. So moving on to the next slide.
So he basically spoke.
Well, this was a transcript of what he just said.
Right.
We can move on.
Yes.
There was something you
he's-
wanted to say
No, I was
concerning
just saying, just to confirm what he was saying, that
Yes.
children have innate abilities, especially
Yes.
creativity in them.
Yeah.
And what he's suggesting is that we teach them out of that.
Yeah.
We do not
Educate people
focus
out of it.
sufficiently on creativity.
Yes.
So therefore,
Yes.
that can impact.
And when those students enter the university, what are they coming with? After having been schooled in very orthodox ways
Right.
that might not necessarily have, but I know in our education system, I worked in the curriculum division. I know that our curriculum guides promote arts and education. You are at the Ministry of Education. You've been involved in integrated arts. And so we'll see before we
Hopefully.
end. Yes,
Yes.
we'll get to that.
Yes.
Even if we have to jump a
Hopefully.
few slides, we'll get to that definitely. Some must see. There are students who are on the margins of the education system. Some of our students have the advantage of, if their school didn't emphasize it, their parents ensure that they're engaged in some kind of artistic learning
Yes.
or creative learning.
Extra lessons.
All right, but how do we get the whole body of students at any level of the system? And when those students come to us at the university, to what degree are we facilitating creative thinking?
Yes.
You know,
a
that's
lot
the
of-
question I have been asking myself, because the challenge is posed to me as well. And I am still learning.
Yes.
Okay, so we move on. So developing creative capacities involves a balance between teaching skills and understanding and promoting the freedom to innovate and to take risks. Risk-taking is a key component of developing creativity and allowing creativity to bloom. I couldn't resist that.
Yes.
So let's
Next.
move on, please. So there we want to put forward for consideration this idea. I personally consider it to be a dichotomy. We have been speaking a lot about creative pedagogy. We have also been including in our discourse considerations about teaching for creativity.
Mhm.
Have we been doing the two? Are they one and the same? Or is there a dichotomy between the two in terms of curricular emphasis or also in terms of pedagogical focus in our practice? So when moving on, so some scholars make a distinction between the two. Some differentiate between creativity education, that's promoting creative thinking, and creative education, which SCI 2015 sees as creative ways of teaching, thinking, and learning. That's something that's up for debate. Moving on.
Which we shall not debate now.
No, we don't have the time.
Yeah,
We can move on.
unfortunately.
We can move on to the next slide. Yes, so that we see that creative pedagogy,
Yeah.
by definition, executes effective pedagogy, effective meaning students are engaged. It's creative teaching methodology. It sustains interest, employs imaginative approaches to enhance
All of these
learning.
we have been speaking about since we
Exactly.
started.
And it's very student-centered,
Centered.
constructivist, as opposed to being primarily teacher-centered. Moving on.
As well as not just drilling, the drill
Exactly.
method that, is the easy way we take in a classroom.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So that arts integration, Dr. Torrell Brown will give an example, an illustration of that, so we can move on. Yes. The visual and performing arts that she's well qualified to speak to very quickly.
Right. Yes. And as you mentioned before, our curriculum, the curriculum of the Ministry of Education,
Yes.
actually pays much attention to the visual and performing arts. It's one of
Yes.
our core subjects on the
Yes,
curriculum.
yes.
But when we look at VAPA, which we call
Mhm.
VAPA for short, visual and performing arts, there are so many different dimensions of it. And here we can see there is arts education, that is teaching the arts, the
Yes.
VAPA, which is visual arts, dance, drama, and music.
Yes.
Then there is a component called interrelated arts. What are the common elements among the arts? So, for example, there is rhythm in music, rhythm in
Yes.
dance, rhythm in art,
Yes.
right? So those are interrelated.
Mhm.
Another perspective is the integrated arts approach. And this
Yes.
is where you use the elements of more than one of the arts to teach. So
Yes.
in one lesson, in one
Yes.
presentation, you have a combination of the arts towards
Yes.
achieving objectives and goals in your lesson.
Yes.
And then we have the famous arts and education approach. And this is where my research is mostly based, and it's infusing the arts into other curriculum subjects,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So these are different underpinnings of how we can incorporate VAPA in education.
And as you say that, my mind goes back very quickly to a practical strategies workshop that we ran at the center here, I think month before last. I think Dr. LaDana was in that workshop, and she came up with something amazing and was able to make the application between ostinato, a technique in music, to getting her students to remember some core concepts in her discipline. I don't know if she's still in. We kind of pressed for time. But LaDonna, if you want to take a quick minute to speak to that, you can unmute if you're still here.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks,
Hi.
Dr. Jones. Yes, actually, so I attended this session in reverse. I attended part 2 before I attended part 1, right? I think that's that's the one that you were speaking about. But yeah, I was really intrigued about the ostinato, and I think what I had shared would have been trying to get students to understand impacts of anthropogenic activities, you know. And when I talk to them about impacts, I often talk to them about biological, physical, chemical, and ecological. But we were able to use those 4 to come up with a rhyme. I can't remember, Dr. Jones, what exactly, you know, I think it was something along the lines of biological, ecological, physical, and chemical.
Something biological.
Yes, I have it written down somewhere, but
Yes,
it was the
yes.
gist of it really. And it was a nice way to get them to remember. I mean, I haven't tried it as yet, you know, but it
Yes.
was really a great technique. So thanks very much.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
So, and we encouraged her to give us feedback when she does try it, but she was able to make the connection between her content area and her discipline and drama in education strategy using music.
Very
And
good.
we did it in the workshop. We tried it out, and it was amazing
Yes.
to see it in action.
Interdisciplinary.
Yes. So thank
Right.
you, Dr. LaDonna. LaDonna, I can't for the life of me remember your surname right now, but thank you so much. I think the gentleman in studio could help me out here, but they're focused on the equipment. So, Dr. Kanhai, thank you, Mr. Mohammed. So moving on quickly to the next slide. Arts and education.
Arts
You
and
wanted to say
education.
something. This is up
Oh,
your alley.
Yes, it is. So I would have done extensive research on how can we use the arts to enhance learning, to achieve academic improvement
Yes.
and achievement. So here you will see some photos of both students and teachers engaged in the creative process where they use VAPA, the arts, to teach whether it is language or science or math or what have you. So we are seeing some students, the photo on the left, engaging in an artistic activity, and some teachers there. You're seeing that person on the man's back, very funny, but they are having fun. So the whole thing about arts and education, the students are having fun and they are learning during the process. They are living the experience. And what I found in the research is that they hardly write on the board or in their books, but they remember the information from doing.
Exactly.
So that artistic, that kinesthetic
Yes,
movements,
yes,
the musical
yes.
elements and artistic elements as well, help them with brain development. Remember, we spoke about the left
Mhm.
brain and right
Yes,
brain.
yes.
Yes, so we found that. So that prompted achievement in academics, but also there
Mhm.
was social benefits there,
Yes.
which hopefully we can get to. We
Yes,
can
and
see
I'm
more
thinking very
examples.
quickly as you are highlighting this, is that it allows for vicarious entry into the subject matter.
Definitely.
And when that happens, when they do the subject, they remember it.
They do.
They remember
Yes,
it.
because they're
Because have you ever experienced a song ringing, a melody ringing? You wake up, you heard it 5 days ago, and a week down the road, you're hearing this melody ringing in your head and your ears, rather. Not ring in your head,
and
ring in your ears. And it just points to the power of music, for example. You see a painting and the impression is so forceful, or you create an artistic artifact. It could be a painting, a drawing, it could be papier-mâché, something you could
yes.
use, sticks, matchsticks, whatever. Well, I heard the matchsticks factory bundang, as we say in local parlance. You could get other sticks and so on. And students can create models,
There's so many
of what
options.
it's now in theater. We talk about moving things from the page to the stage. This is moving content matter from the page to
Yeah,
the classroom,
that's
the
right.
stage of the classroom. And we talk about authentic learning. We talk about having more authentic assessments. When I taught at secondary level, rather than have students simply write an essay for me, I would put them to do group activities, and then we'd have creative expressions. One group presenting the English language content. Now we would have a specific teaching point or a particular language skill that was being developed, but using the medium of poetry. They could do a rap, they could do a song, they could do, but it's loaded with the subject content.
That's the focus.
And that's
that's the pivot.
and that lesson was planned. It wasn't haphazard.
You have to plan.
And the
get
lovely
right.
thing about drama in education and theater in education is that they're built-in controls, because you're talking about classroom management and a whole range of things that we as educators grapple with.
But the good thing is when students are involved in
Yes.
making art and
Yes.
doing art, the
Yes.
discipline level is high.
Exactly.
So you hardly have,
Exactly.
you know,
That was my
you
experience.
need, yeah.
The boy who walked the corridor in primary school, who probably had a learning disability that I was not qualified to diagnose, but who turned up for all of my classes every time I was doing creative expressions out of a series of lessons in a particular unit. He used to come to me with pen and paper and say, "Miss, help me write this calypso." And he was all excited.
There are so
Yes,
many
yes.
lessons. But again,
Yes, there's time.
yes, the time.
So while reading,
Right. Can we go up?
yes, we can go
Will
up.
the video be able to be
Yes,
played?
we need to see this video. The one with the gentleman in the blue shirt, yes. I think
If
our
not, the
colleagues
other
need to see
one?
that. Do we have, how long does that go on for? Not long.
No, not very long.
So maybe we can watch it. These are the last two videos,
If-
I think, and they are brief. Yes?
Yes.
I love this guy.
The dentist isn't your favorite place, and I know you don't want to go. Me and my nurse sitting here, we're wondering why you hate us so. We talk for hours and hours about preventing gum disease and tooth decay, but you don't listen to me. You keep on eating sweets and smoking 20 a day. That's why I'm singing out, girl, you know you need to brush twice a day, then get that floss in between. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm Mr. SD, please hear me now.
Okay, we can pause there.
Yes, so we get the message.
Yes.
So what this does, it transmits information, knowledge through a musical
Medium, yes.
medium. Yes. So he sang. And what he did, he used a popular song and
Mhm.
changed the lyrics to insert the content that he wanted to get across. Right. So if we apply this to education,
Yes.
we can do similarly. See, it was captivating. It was
Yes.
fun. I saw you dancing, Dr. Jones.
Can't
Right.
help
I myself couldn't help it. So think about using the strategy in the classroom.
And you have the Jingles project?
I have. I have done that, the Arts and Education project, Math Jingles project, ELA Jingles.
And persons can find information about that online.
Yes, online.
Yes.
What I would like to share, again, it helped memory and retention.
Exactly.
Remember you were saying, you spoke about the
Yes.
airworm, the
Yes.
song being played over and over in your
Oh,
mind. You
that's
keep
what you
hearing
call
it.
it.
Yeah, it's called an airworm.
I hate words.
Oh God. But it's
Okay. Yes,
right?
it does.
Yes. So we found that music also helps with brain development as well.
Yes, definitely.
But
That's
definitely the
very important.
research and
Yes.
local research was done, which showed that students remember the information
Yes.
easier.
Yes.
They grasp it easier, faster, and it stays longer. So it
Exactly.
helps with retention.
Exactly.
Yes. I would also like to share another video, if possible,
Yes,
that shows
please.
not just music, but all of the other arts that
Yes.
can be incorporated. Now, this was done at the primary school level.
Yes.
But remember, we spoke
The
about
principle applies.
adaptability.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it can be
Done
applied.
at any level.
Because I love primary level.
And I
You know?
am still very attached to those Sesame Street shows I saw as a little girl.
Yeah.
Seriously, it has never left me. And William Wordsworth said, "Child is father of the man." I think there's a psychologists talk about different ego states, parent, child, and so on. So it can be adapted.
It can be.
And as Dr. Freddie James pointed out, we understand that andragogy and that adults have different learning needs. So the adapting would take consideration of their needs. And
That's right.
because they come with such a vast repertoire and schema of knowledge, they themselves can create these things
Exactly.
and come up with suggestions as to ways in which they could creatively engage with the discipline.
As we say, it's not the teacher is not the sage on the
The
stage,
stage, but
right?
the
But make it
guide on the
student
side.
centered.
Yes,
correct. So if
excellent.
we can take a look at the
Yes.
video, to see the incorporation of the other arts.
Yes, a lovely example.
Arts in Education Pilot Initiative.
This approach really helps our children to learn. It really helps them with retention of the information because they are actively involved in it. As one of our educators say, that constructivism is where students learn best when they're actively involved in a lesson. So when the children dance, when they move, when they create through drama and dance and music, they are actually living the experience of what they're learning. And therefore you will find memory and retention is enhanced.
So with this new program, Arts in Education, now that we have drama and dance and art and craft, not only is the class more exciting for me, the teacher, but the children also. And if I am having fun teaching and laughing and dancing, the children will feed off of my spirit and also have fun. And when you have fun, you remember, you learn. And when you use plenty colors and songs and moves in life and in life's experiences, any little movement that reminded you of the past will bring back memories that you know, fun memories. You don't have to remember that licks made you learn the tables. No, a song make you learn the tables, so no more licks to learn. It's songs and dance and movement and art and craft.
2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4.
The Arts in Education Pilot Project.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That was a very good illustration of how it worked at that level and gives us ideas about how we can start thinking creatively about adapting the particular strategy. at the higher education teaching and learning level. So I'm going to ask Master Control to take us down a couple slides. We don't have enough time to go through the other examples, but I think what we saw have been, okay, we can get there now. And I will just ask Dr. Torrell Brown to share with us briefly. I felt that it was really important because higher education is about research, a lot about research.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Jones. So briefly, I would have conducted action research for my at MPhil level.
Yes.
Because I found very often we get data, we get strategies
Yeah.
and so on
Yes.
from international
Precisely.
right forum. So I decided let us try something locally. Let's see, take what the international researchers are saying and try to apply it within a local context.
Yes.
And I did that among 12 schools in Trinidad and Tobago,
Yes.
where to see how we can improve
Yeah.
academic performance using the arts. So the arts and education approach was applied.
Yeah.
However, there was one group of schools that were the control schools.
Okay.
So they did not use the arts and education. Actually, they were taught to do the traditional
I see.
chalk and talk method as we know it.
I would like to see the findings,
The
some of the
findings.
findings.
So let's go on.
Let's scroll down
let's-
and see.
Right. So this is the research design. So there were 4 groups, as I mentioned. One is the
Yes.
control group,
Yes.
traditional method of teaching.
Yes.
The experimental group 1, they were taught through the arts, but non-indigenous arts. And indigenous
Yes.
means here local,
Yes.
familiar to TNT, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
The second group, indigenous arts,
Mhm.
but artists were invited. Sorry, artists were not in the classroom.
Yes.
But the last group, the students were taught through indigenous arts, and
Yes.
artists, local artists, were invited
Yes.
into the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's go forward to see the results. What we found is very instructive.
Yes.
The qualitative, so it was a mixed method research. The
Yes.
qualitative findings are the students who were taught through the traditional or chalk and talk method,
Yes.
there were much distraction. Right?
Yes.
They were slouching the desk, they were playing with objects, they
Yes.
could not remember the work. And in one of the sessions I attended,
Yes.
because as a researcher, I was there for observation
Yes.
and data collection.
Yes.
And the teacher was saying, but Mike, don't look at the chart. Imagine the chart was there, but the child was still giving the wrong answer. And then the
Oh.
teacher kept asking the question, what is a verb? What is a verb?
Mhm.
And the children is, a verb is something to write, and answers like that. She
Yes.
said, but we did this already. So
Mhm.
it means that method did not
Yes.
work for that particular group of students,
Yes.
right? However, on the other hand, the students who were taught through the arts,
Yes.
they definitely picked up the information quickly, as I mentioned before, and they remembered it. So I went back a year after, and the students who were taught via the arts and education approach, they remembered the information.
A year after.
A year after,
Yes.
in comparison with the students who were taught through the traditional method,
Yes.
still did not remember
Yes.
the information. So, so it speaks to retention,
Yes.
participation. The students to the arts were very much having fun and participating.
Yes.
The discipline, there was no need to discipline any student who were involved in the arts,
Yes.
unlike the control group.
Yes.
And of course, the smiles and the eagerness among the students were found among the students who were taught through the arts. And maybe just go forward, please, into
Yes.
the next
I'd just
slide.
like to just say very quickly, findings of the study I did also corroborates
Yes.
with what you found. And this wasn't only at secondary level, also included data from tertiary level.
Yes, it
Yes.
definitely speaks.
Yes.
And for the quantitative results, I would just like us to look at the highlighters. So they will give them a pre-test
Yes.
and a post-test. Everybody got the same test.
Yes.
And specific topics were targeted.
Yes.
And what is instructive is that only students who were taught via indigenous arts performed at the higher bands of 86% and over.
They were blooming.
They were blooming. Yes. And it's because of the creativity
Yes.
that we incorporated
Yes.
into the lesson.
Yes.
So that's basically what this
Okay.
table shows, and we can move
Thank
forward,
you.
please.
Yes.
Right. And this shows more or less similar.
Yes.
So out of the 4 groups, the
Mhm.
students who were taught via indigenous arts
Mhm.
with artists incorporated, so that's the artists in schools model,
Yes.
they outperformed all the other groups. So it's
Yes.
very instructive to us. It speaks to cultural relevancy.
Exactly.
So incorporating local materials,
Yes.
local personnel,
Yes.
local strategies
Yes.
really helps our students because it reaches where they are. And you know,
Yes.
education, it says, should be from the known to the
To the
unknown.
Exactly.
Yes, so it's very instructive, and I know we don't
Yes.
have much time to go into
Yes.
more of it, but I found it to
Thank
be
you for
really
sharing
interesting.
this. And action research is really powerful.
Yes,
And it's
it
happening
is.
here at the UE.
And
Okay.
yeah, because I did
Yes.
it at UE.
It would be nice for us to see more of it in the realm of creative pedagogy. So we have
Yes.
just 8 minutes left. So moving on, we want to highlight, we can move on. We can move on again. Implications. Yes, I think Dr. Torrell Brown just summarized
Oh.
that nicely. So moving on to wrap up, we can scroll down. We can scroll down. I'm sharing, we can continue to scroll. We're skipping some of our slides. We're scrolling down to the slide that takes us back to pedagogy for creativity, a consideration about that.
Yes.
So that we've been talking about creative pedagogy, and we understand the implications for academic achievement and other kinds of achievement that develop someone holistically. Pedagogy for creativity is another side of the coin, same coin, because one undergirds the other, they dovetail. Engenders empowerment through critical dialogue. So I am personally advocating for critical dialogue, for our having more dialogic engagement in our teaching and learning within a creative context or creative pedagogy context. That critical dialogues begins to spark potentially creative thinking. It's learner-centered. We talked about that. We talked about risk-taking and innovation. It involves purposeful analysis. We're looking at the taxonomy again. Evaluation, imaginative idea generation requires a drive to action and requires there goes the word again, implementation of ideas. It doesn't remain in the realm of ideas. It enters the realm of doing. And we talk about making connections, not only between what is unknown, what is known and unknown, we're talking about making real world connections
Real world.
and applying the ideas in innovative ways. So moving on. So we want to look quickly at a comparison between the concept of creative pedagogy and pedagogy for creativity. So we talked about what's on the left, creative pedagogy, effective, it's motivational, can sustain student interest, employs the imaginative approaches. Pedagogy for creativity now could potentially engender empowerment through critical dialogue, is learner-centered, promotes risk-taking and innovation. We just looked at that, but we wanted to see the comparison. Moving on.
Quite similar.
Yes. I have argued and I'm advocating, and I mentioned earlier that dichotomy that I discerned while I was conducting my study between, there's a tension. We can click on the audio icon there. Okay. And I don't think, well, technology doesn't always work the way we want it to. But we can move on to the next slide. Dewey. We all are familiar with Dewey. And he is saying rather than polarize, have contrasting positions, we can find a way to synthesize, to integrate the two conceptions of creativity in education.
They're both important.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin, I argue. But the latter, PFC, I call it, pedagogy for creativity, requires a deliberate thinking about and doing in terms of pedagogical practice.
Planning. We come back
Planning
to the word planning.
and executing, implementing,
Implementation.
and pedagogy for creativity to foster more creative thinking, creative learning, and creative doing. Not just creative teaching to engage, but fostering and empowering persons to become more creative as learners.
So I think this speaks to the slide we started with, the
Yes,
pillars of
pillars.
success.
Full circle, the
Full
monument,
circle,
full circle.
planning,
full
differentiation,
circle.
implementation, and
Full
creativity.
circle.
Yes.
So moving on, rather than take one side or the other, we integrate them. Moving on.
We have compromised.
And so I think I shared this model sometime last year, a hybrid model for creative education that I have been proposing and still learning about it, still exploring. I call it a critical transformative pedagogy for creativity. So the components of this particular model are creative pedagogy / transformative learning, pedagogy for creativity, and creative pedagogy. And moving on. And I say herein lies a resolutioning of the tension. And I refer to it as a tension because I think sometimes, myself included, because I've had some training in drama in education and theater in education, sometimes I lean more heavily to developing myself as a creative practitioner. And I'm recognizing the need to consider and to explore and to plan for and to apply and implement for the ultimate goal of student success, that side of it, pedagogy for creativity. The ideal characteristics of a UE, the characteristics of an ideal UE graduate. At the top, first line, critical and creative thinker. How is my creative pedagogy supporting their ability to become that? Developing what skills?
And the ideal CARICOM citizen.
The ideal CARICOM citizen. As a matter of urgency, we must consider the potential merit of adopting and implementing such an approach, viewed against the Caribbean's historical backdrop, where issues such as identity, inequality, marginality, othering, chromatism, exploitation, hegemony, and imperialism have featured prominently in the evolving post-colonial script. And moving on as we bring the curtain down on our webinar today, critical and transformative elements, because true learning, they say, is evidenced by behavioral change.
That's right.
Must converge in the creative teaching / learning interplay to effect a critical, transformative pedagogy for creativity. Moving on. We can move down. Yes. So that was a video. Yes. Could we go back and just hear that to end, please? I think we can end with that. Yes. Is it playing? That brings the curtain down
the transcript
nicely.
here,
Yes. Yes.
you know, shares
Exactly.
what the
So if
video.
we can't get the video to, oh, we got
And
it.
my contention is all kids have tremendous talents and we squander them pretty ruthlessly. So I want to talk about education and I want to talk about creativity. My contention is that creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. Thank you.
And the child, as Williams Woodworth said, is father of the man. The adults coming to us who wants children in our school system. And referring again to Dr. Freddie James's point about the relevance and the adaptation of these concepts to teaching and learning in education, the implications, I believe, are clear and worthy of critical and serious consideration. As we move to the next slide, I am hoping that persons have, we can go on to the next slide. Yes, we are hoping that educational theories that recognize the absolute importance of integrating creative measures, strategies, methodologies would become the norm rather than the exception in terms of application. So we can go to the next slide. So we just want to ask you as we bring the curtain down, what do you understand by creative education? Maybe we could have one person unmute.
Yes, that would be nice.
Or you, while that person is speaking, the others can be writing in the chat. Our colleagues would also have placed the evaluation link in the Zoom chat because we need feedback from you to know how to attempt to perfect our craft. We're always after that goal of perfection. And do we have someone who just wants to make a closing statement? We bring in closure to this quote unquote educational event. So do we have one person? What do you understand by the term creative education? Reflection is key to what we do. We don't just do, we reflect. Action research is about reflecting on practice, reflecting in practice, reflecting before practice.
Yes,
So,
and adjusting the strategy.
exactly.
So
It's
getting feedback
cyclical.
from you
It's
can help
iterative,
us
yes,
to
definitely.
adjust our.
It's a perpetual loop, and feedback in the communicative process is of the utmost importance and completes the cycle. So, anything in the chat to master control? Nothing as yet.
No one willing to share.
Anyone willing to unmute and share? What do you understand creative education to be? Or just a comment about what you gained from today's webinar? One person. Anyone? So we want to say thank you. We just need one person, one brave soul to unmute and tell us what you, or persons I think are busy doing the evaluation as well.
Right.
But one person can unmute, but we want to say thank you so very, very much to you, Dr. Josephine Torrell Brown, for taking time off. We are thankful to the Ministry of Education for allowing you to come and share out of your expertise with us. We're part of the ministry too. We all are. There's a comment? Yes, we have a comment
All right,
before we say goodbye. Yes, go ahead, please.
We actually have two comments. Well, comments from two persons. Dr. Zephyrin, he mentioned that
He's here.
this is a teaching point that he's mentioning. Don't be afraid to try something new.
Thank you, Dr.
point.
Zephyrin. That's my colleague I mentioned earlier. He can sing like an angel. He's a brilliant academic, and I'm sure he'll admit that his involvement in the arts has definitely helped his own personal growth and development. Dr. Hill, I'm sure, will agree. Dr. Hill didn't jump in to say anything.
Marsha mentioned empowering our learners to use their imagination to bring new perspective to our world and new solutions to global problems. And we have a third one.
Yes.
Employing unorthodox strategies to foster to foster student teaching and learning.
Excellent. Thank you,
Well done.
colleagues.
Michelle is saying student engagement as well.
Excellent. So thank you so much, colleagues, for engaging in this discussion, these critical considerations. Thank you for your comments. Special thank you again to Dr. Torrell Brown. Special thank you to my colleagues here, my director, Dr. Leroy Hill, Mr. Randy Duku, assisting at master control level, Mr. Javed Mohammed, Mr. Mark Garcia, and my other colleagues who are also listening in and supporting in the background. Thank you so much for taking the time to engage in this discourse, and feel free to reach out to the center should you have any questions about the topics. Feel free to reach out to me, juliet.jones@sta.uwi.edu, and we bid you goodbye and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much again. Please, before you go, do complete the evaluations, and please be brutally honest in those evaluations. We appreciate everything you have to say. So, as they say in media land, I'm not supposed to say that, but it's over and out. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.